and welcome everybody to the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. Joining me today as a special guest is Police Chief Curtis Baker. How are we doing?
I'm great.
I appreciate you stepping in. President Jenkins had some family things that she had to take care of, so she wasn't going to be able to make it today. But Johnny on the spot was here and ready to jump right in and pop into this one. So we've got a jam-packed show full of all sorts of information today. But we're going to start off just talking a little bit about what's going on with RPD. So big issue that's come up on social media and in every other conversation that I have is residential speeding. Speeding tends to be an issue on a number of streets, especially the straight roads, First Gate, Kingsley, Priestley, Bryce north of Main Street, Retton, Bartlett. You know, there's a number of them out there. And everybody's concerned about it, and everybody wants to know what are our options. What legitimately are our practical options to address issues with speeding in our community?
Yeah, so on the city side, you're dealing with engineering issues with the streets and the way we can minimize speeding on streets. And then we have the law enforcement side where we take enforcement action on speeding. So there are several factors that go into where we address speeding issues, how we determine whether there's speeding issues, and what's the most efficient use of our people out there. What I want to do is first give you some stats, because when we read online, a lot of people believe that we don't write a lot of citations, and quite the contrary, we do write some citations out there. So I want to give you some stats on what we're doing in just addressing speeding. So in 2020, we stopped 2,530 citizens for speeding, and out of those we wrote 1,096 citations for speeding. Speeding in 2020 was 44% of all the citations that we issued as an agency. 2021, we're pretty consistent so far this year. We've stopped 2,216 people for speeding. We've issued 802 citations, which accounts for 40% of all the citations we've issued as a police department. So when we kind of determine where we want to put our people to address traffic issues and speeding issues, we use data to determine where they're most efficiently used. The number one piece of data that we use comes from MORPC, and they show us where the most crashes are occurring. So that's where we want to put most of our effort. We want to prevent these crashes. We don't want those areas to get worse. So those areas are priority number one, where the crashes are occurring, and we want to address traffic violations there. When we get complaints of speeding in neighborhoods, we have this little device that it's no secret. It's a hidden covert radar. And so we send a lot of these stats to you. You routinely ask me for traffic data in neighborhoods, and we want to make sure the information we are getting is true and factual from what the data says. So the way these covert radars work is we will set up a radar in a neighborhood area. It will be unknown to the motoring public, and it will record the data of every vehicle that drives by. And data, I mean speed. We will then see what the average speeds are, what the high speeds are, what the low speeds are, and we can decide whether that area needs extra attention, whether the complaints that are coming in are valid. What I will tell you is people that speed through residential areas will speed on 256, they'll speed on Lancaster, they'll speed on Main, they speed on Bryce. So if we sit an officer in a neighborhood for 2 hours and 2 cars passes by, and maybe we catch the person that speeds, maybe we don't, but we've now taken an officer off the road for a couple hours and they really haven't done anything else. The person speeding on First Gate is going to come on a feeder street on the main road and speed on that street. And so we have 6 feeder roads, for example, that go onto a main road, and we can more efficiently use our speed officers in those areas. So because we don't get them on First Gate does not mean that person speeding down First Gate is not getting a traffic citation. What we want to do is use our officers the most effectively, most efficient way. So as you can see by the statistics, over 1,000 people this year are going to get tickets for speeding. That's a good number. During a typical month, we typically stop over 200 people for speeding. About half of those people get citations, half get warnings. So we do address it. If you have a specific complaint in an area, we will send an officer, or we will do a traffic study to see if the complaints match up with the true data from those radars.
Now, I know that a number of people, they always say, it used to be the joke, and you and I have kind of talked about this, about an officer being at, at the cemetery or
Yes.
other locations. And one of the things that you said when we had that conversation is, why do they seem to be sitting there? Sometimes they are doing traffic, but most of the times they're not doing that. Most of the times what you said is they're actually doing some paperwork. They're actually filling out some things.
Yes.
And for the safety of the officer, you want to make sure that those officers are in an area where, in essence, you'd have that visual acuity all the way around, that you can see what's in the area, especially
Yes.
in light of society right now. So that might be where you see some of these officers in those locations, is while they may not necessarily be tracking speeding at that moment, they may be doing some paperwork, they may be actually doing some other work in there that is diverting their attention to down here, but they are in an area that is open enough so they can still see all the way around for safety concerns.
Yeah, so they want to, that's something we train officers, is to sit in an area where somebody can't sneak up on your car very quickly and cause you harm. That's one of the things we constantly hear from the citizens that go through the Citizens Police Academy. Part of that program is they do a ride along with officers, and they just can't believe the amount of paperwork that goes along with being a police officer.
Government bureaucracy.
So the 5 seconds of fun, or the excitement of the call, and then you have an hour of paperwork, because everything we do has to be documented. So a lot of times when you see an officer sitting there or they're off the road, there's a reason for that. They have to get that report done as quickly as they can, so then they can resume their patrol duties.
Okay. So there's no truth to the rumor that this is an early warning system for the zombie apocalypse. Is that?
There is no truth to that.
Okay, all right, because I know that had been out there in the past. I know we're a little past Halloween, but there you go. All right, something a little bit more interesting and innovative. There's a trading card program going on with RPD. So why don't you tell everybody about what these trading cards are about, and where this idea came from, and how people can actually get them, that type of thing.
Yeah, so this has been a great program. We are always looking for ways to build relationships, build partnerships, increase communication with people in our community. And a lot of time that comes through kids that we meet. Kids are often fascinated with police, and they like the lights, they like the sirens. And so Lieutenant Bender approached me a couple months ago with an idea of starting it's like a baseball card, trading card program. We have some officers that work for us that have some interesting paths. We have some pro football player, we have some college athletes, just different things. And so we thought this would be a great way to kind of humanize the officers. So we always talk about building relationships, humanizing officers. And we found this idea. Lieutenant Bender pitched it. We okayed it. And we kind of did it as a pilot project. It has caught fire. So while I was working Halloween the other day, I'm driving down the street and kids are running to the cruiser, flagging me down, and I've got a huge bag of candy in the car. And they don't ask for the candy. They ask if I have a trading card. So what's neat about the trading cards, there's over 60 of them, but all of them have kind of fun facts on the back that will let you get to know who that officer is. So we want people in the community to see officers as community protectors. And this kind of humanizes the officers in our city. And that's the goal of this. I never imagined it would catch fire like this. We have adults coming up to us asking for cards. So it's great. We're going to continue it as long as it's fun, and then we'll try to find something else.
Yeah, actually, I've had requests about using my position to get an entire set of everything, and I'm like, no, that's not you got to go out and you got to talk to the officers, because that's the goal, is to have those conversations. And we've talked about that before, that having those conversations makes things a lot easier. And if you have a card that goes with it, it's a little bit of an objective thing. It's like Pokemon, but not near as unique as that.
Well, we're much cooler than
Pokemon. Absolutely. Now, unfortunately for you guys, I'm in the next Citizen Police Academy class in January, or late January, February, whenever you guys...
late January.
Yeah, late January. What should I expect, along with other members that are going to go through the police academy? What would you say we should expect, and what's going to be the biggest surprise? What has been the thing that everybody goes, well, I thought it was going to be this, but it turned out this?
Yeah, so I would expect to have fun with officers. Again, we want to have an environment where we have serious discussions. People can ask questions about why we do certain things in certain situations, but most of it's to have fun and to interact with the officers in our agency. So you will have some classroom type stuff. We kind of try to limit that. So you'll learn about policies, and that's to give you an understanding of why we do certain things. But then you'll have some interactive stuff. So you'll get put in some police scenarios. So where you'll have to decide what type of force to use, whether to use force at all. You'll have to make some very quick decisions. And so it gives us kind of a mutual understanding of, we want to have the understanding of what the citizen feels, and we want the citizen to have the understanding of what the officer feels in these situations. So it's been very fun. It's been great. I'm involved in 3 of the 8 classes based upon feedback from the community. We started at 7 weeks. We've now expanded it to 8 weeks. Okay. We've had personnel inside the department asked to add parts to the program because they want to become involved. So it's been great. We limited it to 7 weeks when we started because we wanted to respect people's time. We didn't want to make it like a winter bowling league where it lasts 20 weeks. But because of the feedback from the community, we have extended it 1 week, and we will continue to change the program based upon the feedback that we get. So it's really been great, and it's been fun.
Okay. Am I going to get in trouble if I quote almost every cop movie at some point in time? Because I'm probably going to. I'm just letting you know.
Not at all. Okay. We are there to have fun and to participate. So you will find my portions of the class are very fun. People laugh. They say, I've never seen a police chief act like this. I don't know if that's good or bad. But they seem
I've never heard that about me either.
Yeah, they seem to be enjoying themselves. Yeah. So we'll keep going until we get negative feedback, but I'll take it as a good thing.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and just kind of continuing on with this entire idea of building those connections. Obviously, COVID has kind of limited what we can do with school districts, but we had a meeting earlier at the beginning of the year to talk with our superintendent and his administrators and how to build relationships through the school district. So what are some of the things that we've already done, and what are we looking to do as we kind of move forward?
Yeah, so first I want to say I'm very thankful for the partnership with the school district. We have the same goals in keeping the students safe, building relationships, and we are very fortunate here in Reynoldsburg to have that partnership with the school district. They've had some very trying times through COVID, and really I don't know how they've managed to push their way through this period of time. But we are still in the schools. The schools have welcomed our officers with open arms. A few of the things we've partnered with them is books and badges, which is at a younger age. We've partnered with them on coat drives, backpack drives. We also partner with them with our Shop with a Cop program. So they give us referrals for that. Once we kind of come out of COVID, our plan is to bring some programs to older age kids, whether it be middle school or high school. And what we want to do, and while we don't have specifics of the program yet, what we want to do is to increase those opportunities to communicate and build relationships. The same things we do with our women's self-defense, our CPA, and things of that nature. What we find is our community is a lot safer when we can build those partnerships, build those relationships. We want kids to understand why we do what we do. We want our officers to understand why officers fear the police if they do. Yeah. And we want to bridge that gap. So that's the goal of what we want to bring to middle school and high school. How we get there, we're still working through those details, and that will become one of our priorities once we get through COVID and we feel comfortable doing that. Kids have been through a lot in the last year and a half. We want to be careful that we don't pile too much on them because they are still navigating this COVID time.
Aren't we all? Now, with 2022 almost here, are there any new programs or plans that you guys are considering that, obviously the budget's coming up, and I know you're going to ask about, any kind of extra budget materials like that for your department, but is there anything that you see that's coming up that you would like to make sure that people out there know about?
Yeah, so what we are doing is we are fine-tuning what we currently do. So women's self-defense, CPA, we want to make those the best programs that we can make them. We don't want to overextend ourselves. But I am going to take the opportunity to pitch this program again. So,
there you go.
So during the pandemic, as you know, Mayor, we bought a utility vehicle a couple years ago, and we kind of had an idea of how we were going to use it. But we weren't really using it to its full potential. So during the pandemic, we have 2 community resource officers, Officer King and Officer Marshall, which they're kind of famous here in town. Everybody seems to know them. They came to us and asked if they could take that UTV, which is a utility vehicle, on patrol in neighborhoods and parks and things of that nature. And the reason they did that is we had a restriction on riding with somebody in a vehicle, in a closed vehicle. Well, this is an open air vehicle. They're able to patrol together and have fun with the community. Well, we really never envisioned using it that way. We envisioned using it for special events and things of that nature, but not as like a patrol vehicle. And since we have done that, the feedback we have received has been tremendous. You've been a part of some community forums where you've heard that feedback. I did not place those people in the community forums. So we are looking to expand that at the end of the year. I look forward to myself getting in the vehicle, possibly you joining me in the summer, and we cruise through the neighborhoods and open up these discussions, build the relationships. Again, everything goes back to that. And so when we have the tools to get better at that, that's what we want to do. So that's what we're looking for 2022.
Well, now that he's put me on the spot, I'm sure I'll see it on the budget as it comes in. No, I think it's a great idea. I think that to have that out there, you know, we've talked to some people that just appreciate it. That it's not a squad car that's just driving through. It's something that will go through, and if you're out in the neighborhood, if you're walking, you can stop and have those conversations. And Officer King and Marshall, while I don't know, you know, famous is the right word. I know my assistant is just a big fan. That sometimes I think you couldn't find somebody better for those positions. You know, it's hard to find somebody that wants to be all the things that an officer is, but at the same time have that community relations component to it. And all of your officers that have come on in the last couple of years, they're all very focused on both sides of it. It's not just the police enforcement, but it's also the building relationships thing.
Absolutely. You know, we know the better relationship we have with the community, the safer our community is going to be. I'll give you an example where we've put a lot of work into a certain portion of the city, building relationships, having meetings, and they were having some challenges in that area with some crimes. And we really had community input in that area, which helped us address some of those issues, solve some of those crimes, and it's made it a much safer place to live. So those partnerships, those relationships are critical to public safety in Reynoldsburg, and the more we can build that, the safer Reynoldsburg will be.
Now, those are the end of my questions, but we do have kind of a two-part question, but I'll read them both. This is from John Sariak, who hopefully is watching. He sent these in pretty much right about 30 seconds after the post went out that you were going to be the guest.
Okay.
So can you speak on the current status of the domestic abuse within the city limits of Reynoldsburg, and what initiatives are in place or in the works in our city to confront or prevent domestic violence?
Yeah, so our issues with domestic violence are no different than any other community here in Central Ohio. It is an issue. It's a priority. It's one of the most dangerous calls that officers go on. A lot of our involvement in domestic issues, I should say up to this point, is reactionary. So we don't know about it until we get that 911 call or we observe a fight in public, and then we become involved. Our reaction to it, I think, is very good. So we have an organization here in Franklin County called Choices. If you want to learn more about it, you can Google Choices Domestic Violence Franklin County. Okay. It'll pull up their website. It'll show exactly what they do. But once an officer arrives on scene, they do a lethality assessment on the victim of the domestic violence crime, and they determine what the chances are of them being a victim of a reoffense of domestic violence. If they score high enough on this assessment, we immediately call Choices. They have a 24-hour hotline, and we offer that hotline service to the victim right on the spot. So right away, they don't have to wait. Choices can provide temporary shelter, which is a big issue for domestic violence victims, is they don't have anywhere to go, so they stay in the situation. They also provide domestic violence counseling. They'll provide legal advocates and peer support groups. So it's a great organization that helps here in Franklin County. I think they've been around since the mid-70s. They've had different partners, different funding streams, but they are here to help. Their goal is to interrupt the crime of domestic violence in our community. So they do a great job. You know, we also will provide on-the-spot information on obtaining protection orders. So if an offender needs a protection order, we will guide them through that process. And then when we link up with Choices, that gives them an avenue to escape. Okay. Now, currently, we now have a social worker that we've brought on board this year. That would be another, I guess we could go back to the question before of 2022. We're looking to expand that program if we find it necessary. The early indications is that we could probably use somebody next year once we kind of get settled in. But we will also offer that social worker to that victim that can help them navigate the resources that are out there that are available for domestic violence victims. So we've got a few ways to address it. again, if the people want help, we want to be able to provide that help to them. So that's where we're going with domestic violence.
Well, thank you very much, John, for those questions. Do we have any questions online so far?
Not for the chief, but we have one for you.
Of course.
Caught up here on the camera. Sorry about that. It says, any word from the Army Corps of Engineers regarding flooding issues?
Yeah, we're actually in the process of applying for a grant application to start that comprehensive study of all the waterways in and out of around Reynoldsburg. The grant application is due middle of November. We should hear word back within about a month after that, and then the process will start with engineers coming out and actually doing surveying and figuring out where the water's coming from, what the capacities are, all of those different things. One interesting thing that we did learn is that the rains from August of last year were actually, or August of this year, are actually considered, you've heard the phrase, 100-year flood.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually considered a 500 to 1,000 year flood event, and that's classified as from the National Weather Service. So obviously this is something very unusual. I mean, most people probably don't even realize that there's a 500 to 1,000 year event. But we are working with them, and like I said, hopefully when we get this application process submitted, then we can go ahead and get them to come in so the funding comes in, so that way we can get that process started all the way.
That's it for right now.
All right. Well, I'd love for you to stick around for a little bit if you had some time.
I'm here.
All right, so we've got some good things coming up. There are some community options to get input. Obviously, yesterday was Election Day, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But this is your chance for the public to get involved. We have a couple of commissions or groups that are going to be coming online this year. The first one is called the Charter Review Commission, and it's exciting as it sounds. You get to review the city charter. Yeah, that's not that fun. So basically, you're going to be submitting a letter and a resume to members, to the clerk of council. You can find the information on our website. Submit that and ask to be a participant in reviewing our charter. So this is if there's any changes that we need to make to our charter. Some of it is going to be as simple as, like, one thing I know that has been looked at is combining our planning and zoning and building appeals into one committee, so that way it's kind of like a one-stop shopping instead of having to do two different things. So that is a possibility. Another one is streamlining the ability for the city to put motions up. So we know that we're going to have the budget, and if it's already been approved by the budget, then let us go ahead and move it to a resolution as opposed to having to go through 3 reads for something that has already been previously budgeted. So that might be something. There's also the possibility of some bigger things. One topic that always comes up, especially around Election Day, is nonpartisan elections. That might be something that the commission could consider. To be eligible for this, you have to be an elector of the city of Reynoldsburg, meaning you have to be registered to vote in the city, and you have to have at least no more than 2 members of any individual political party on the committee. So that would be, in essence, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, an independent, or some combination of that all the way across, because it's supposed to be very, as it is fair and balanced as best as it can be. We also have an opportunity for the ward boundary realignment. For those of you that are not familiar with Reynoldsburg, you can actually look at online and see that our city is basically broken up into quadrants. It's a little bit different than the police department, but it's kind of the same mentality. You have, this is how we determine who's our council members for our ward races. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, depending on the area of the city. But because the city has grown by 14.5% from 2010 to 2020, we need to reevaluate to make sure that those things are done. And unlike the state legislators in Ohio, we are not going to gerrymander it to our political advantage one way or another. And yeah, I said that. I've seen the maps. Gerrymandered it's a horrible thing. It's not what it should be, and we're not going to be doing that. I don't expect the boundary lines to change too much because, again, there's not been a lot in terms of housing added based on the census. Now, in 2030, when the next census comes across with some of the housing, that may change some things, but that's there. But that's my thing. But as a member of the Ward Realignment Committee, you can figure out exactly how it is. I know for some of us, depending on the side of part of town you're in, one side of the street could be one ward representative, the other side of the street could be another ward representative. So those are the things where the lines have to be drawn in some cases. So that's something there as well. You also have a position for the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals is going to be available. So this would be if a developer comes in and wants to have a variance to build something that is not a permitted use in that existing site. So that would be something that you could do. Or if there's someone who wants to put an addition to their home that is, again, outside of what is allowable, they can make that appeal. Sometimes it's about an in-home business, sometimes it's signage, things like that, but that would be a possibility of applying for that position. So the post went up a little while ago, earlier today, on social media, and it'll be on the website, I'm sure, in the not too distant future for you to send that information in. The charter review and ward boundary positions are submitted to Clerk of Council Molly Prasher, and she will provide that information to council, and then they will select those individuals. The Board of Zoning Appeal and Building Appeals will come specifically to me, and I'll review those things, probably give you a call and talk to you about it, and go from there. So we look forward to seeing those applications come in for those things. We also want to congratulate the Reynoldsburg Marching Pride on their superior rating at the state championships. In no small part due to the escort that RPD provided them to get to. It was great. It was a nice thing to see. Appreciated about that opportunity. I know the bus drivers and the kids were wondering why the police were there in the first place, but when they got the escort, they thought it was a pretty cool thing, and it kind of set the stage for it. So we do appreciate that. We do have a couple of other items. A Main Street update. As you notice, Main Street traffic is still moving along relatively well. Don't worry, we'll put a stop to that soon. We're waiting on some things to come in from AEP. We're waiting for some materials and things like that, so they're going to start burying those power lines in those areas in the not too distant future as we move forward. I do have an update on the skate park. We do have some materials that are coming in this week, late this week or early next week, including wood and then the metal that actually goes around to frame it all up, so that way the skate park can actually get finished. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks that gets done, so we're looking forward to that. We also have an event this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 7453 East Main Street. This is the Helping Hands Food Drive that will happen. It happens every year around this time. It's always good to get those that non-perishable food items to Helping Hands. It's right on Main Street, just down the road from City Hall. There'll be a couple of message boards out there for everybody to know the location, so they'll appreciate all of that. We also have our tree lighting, and the Reynoldsburg Community Association is going to be sponsoring the Christmas on the Town event later in December, that first Saturday in December. So we'll get more details as we get a little bit there. I know we haven't even gotten to Thanksgiving yet, but just want to put that in there so everybody's aware of it. Nothing new really on the development right now. We're still waiting on getting some things in for the Happy Dragon location. Got some other things going on. So we're working really hard on that one. With that, I'll take a couple of seconds. Any questions, comments, anything like that?
Yeah, we did have a question come in. It says, I took my son to the sensory friendly time at the Tomato Festival and met some very nice officers out there interacting with the kids. I appreciate RPD's efforts to be thoughtful about all Reynoldsburg residents. My son is 7 and has autism. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce him to officers to get them familiar with one another. I'm hopeful for more inclusivity like these in the future. Are there any other community outreach plans for the future to reach out to the special needs community in Reynoldsburg?
That's a good. That's a really good question. I think a lot of it depends. This is the time of the year where everything kind of shuts down. But I think definitely moving forward, any kind of events would be there, because we obviously know when it comes to autism, there's different triggers for everybody. Sometimes it's loud noises, sometimes it's big crowds, things like that. But no, I think anything from here on out, we're definitely going to keep that in mind. And especially with an event like the Tomato Festival, we didn't know what the reaction was going to be like. We didn't know what the participation was going to be like. So we are looking forward to doing that again. If we have the opportunity to expand it a little bit, maybe there's that possibility, but definitely something that's there. As far as RPD, I can imagine.
So we've done autism open houses in the past, and we will look to do them again in the future when we can kind of gather again in closed spaces, but maybe that's something we look at this summer, which isn't the traditional month that we do these types of things, but maybe an outdoor event to where we can have the kids in and meet the officers and see the cars and things of that nature. Sounds like something we'll look into.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So as far as the election, I want to send congratulations out to Auditor Stephen Sisak for his re-election to the auditor's position, as well as council members Kristen Bryant, Stacey Baker, and Barth Codner. Congratulations to everything for all of your re-elections. Being a public servant is not an easy job, even under the best of circumstances in this last year with COVID and all the other challenges that's been out there. But I did want to make a couple of comments specifically about just elections in general. Maybe you don't know it because you're not paying attention, and believe me, if you're not, you're probably living a better life. Other communities around Central Ohio, their elections became volatile. Pieces of mail that were degrading, rough, mean, cruel, all the way across, and communities just right next door in Pickerington, Gehenna, Worthington, New Albany. You had Dublin, and all of these other things where issues that drive the national narrative of politics started to trickle down into the local communities, whether it's school board races, city council, things of that nature. There were mailers sent out that people were just horrified to see, and I've shared a couple of them with people here. And I wanted to say how proud I am to be in a city like Reynoldsburg, where Republicans and Democrats don't do that. We disagree on policies, we disagree on philosophies and things of that nature. We have debates, that's what it should be. But over the last few years, we've not seen any of that nastiness, that mudslinging that you see on television or the things that you see in mail. So kudos to every single candidate in Reynoldsburg, Terrell Township, school board, city council, auditor, mayor, council president, everything the last 2 years, that we've decided as a community that that's not the way we're going to go. Everybody plays a part in that. It is a great thing to do, and if you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, take a look at some things that happen out in Pickerington. Take a look at some of the things that have gone out there on social media. Now, I realize social media, people have their different opinions and their things like that, but the candidates themselves don't do those things. And I think everyone, whether you won or lost last night or in the previous elections, that's something to be proud of for Reynoldsburg. And, I know some people make fun of the idea that Reynoldsburg isn't the city of respect. Well, I guarantee you this. You look at some of the other communities and what they go through during a political season, and you look at what we do here in Reynoldsburg, darn right, we are a city of respect. And I hope to keep it like that. I hope that it never changes. It should be about issues. It should be about philosophies. It shouldn't be about the stuff that you see in arguing in Washington, D.C. or at the state level and things like that. So again, congratulations to those that won. For those that did not win, we appreciate your opportunity to go out. It's not an easy thing to be a public servant and to go out and make yourself available for those types of things. But we thank all of you for your service with this and your volunteerism. So I just wanted to put that out there. In the meantime, we do have our next fireside chat. It's on November 10th, just a week. Can you believe it's already, we're going to be in the middle of November before we know it. And we will have actually our very special guest, Franklin County Clerk of Courts, Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy, who's going to be here. So she's going to come in and join us and talk a little bit about what the Clerk of Courts does for Franklin County. And it's a little bit different than what you think. It's not, I know you're probably thinking court like, people's court, mayor's court, things like that. It's going to be a little bit different than that. So we're really looking forward to her having joined us. And then later on this year, we hope to have, members of council that won last night on the show, as well as President Jenkins will be here as well. So those invitations have been sent out. So we look forward to having them on as we get close. And as always, we have that really special guest at the end of December, around the 22nd. So we're not going to tell you who yet, but we've got a really special guest out there. With that, are there any last second questions, comments, anything like that? All right. So again, everybody stay safe, stay respectful. And with the weather being so nice out there, please make sure when you are cutting your grass and gathering your leaves and all of that, please don't put them in the storm sewers. That's a bad thing. Bundle them up, put them in there so the trash can take care of them and all that other fun stuff. And as always, put your shopping carts away. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you.